Thank you for being here, and to the folks at Groove who put it on, especially Chris and Aileen, for all the hard work that you've done. I'm humbled that you asked me to come down. I was awake at 3 o'clock today to get my plane here, so I might be a little loopy. Bear with me if I am. But I know you guys don't want to hear a sales pitch for Proposify, because Groove is already doing a good job of that. What I want to do is offer a little bit of value and talk about a little bit about my journey of how I started Proposify and some of the things I learned along the way, and hopefully it helps with your business, because I know you're all in business. You're all, even if sales isn't your job, it's something you need to do, right? I was talking with a good guy. I'm not gonna name him. I don't want to embarrass him, but he was talking about a fear of sales, and that's something that I faced, for a long time. I never thought of myself as a salesperson. Like I was a designer. That's what I went to school for, and any sales I did was just out of necessity to, have clients and customers and to not die. But rejection is always part of the game, and I think the fear that holds us back as entrepreneurs is, what if they say no? What if they're not interested? Fun fact, I grew up in a religion that makes you go door to door and try to convert people. That was my intro to sales, was 4 years old, knocking on doors, trying to convince someone their religion is wrong, and if they don't convert, they're dying at Armageddon. Bit of a tough sell. Didn't get a lot of takers on that one. So my point being that, I was sort of bred to be a salesperson, but I didn't know it. And that experience I had sort of along the way led me to start a freelance company, build an agency for 5 years, and then now I'm CEO of a company called Proposify. About 4 years ago, I didn't think it was going to survive. I didn't think I was going to survive. We were doing absolutely nothing, and now today, just as last week, we hit $2 million in annual recurring revenue. So, well, thank you. The growth has happened quickly in the last couple of years, so I'm happy to say we're still around today. I already kind of alluded to starting an agency in 2008 and running it, and that was my first business. I was 24, I think, when I started that. Really didn't know anything. Made a lot of mistakes, for everything from sales to operations, scope creep, losing money on projects. I was generally pretty bad at running an agency. But I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I hope to share some of those with you. So I refer to 2012 as my year of hell. That's when I left the religion that had me knocking on doors, which meant that my family and friends all shunned me for leaving. So I didn't have that sort of personal support, and in addition, my business was failing. We were always running into cash flow issues. We sometimes had to jump in a car and travel to a client's office to pick up a check so that we wouldn't miss payroll. We were just absolutely drowning. We were trying to come out with products, one of them being Proposify, and then somehow throughout that year or two of hell, we managed to sell off our agency and raise a seed round of $250,000 in seed capital for Proposify. Now, the $250K isn't a lot in startup in Silicon Valley. That's like they hand that out to hobos on the street, I realize. But for us, that was a huge win. And it gave us the freedom to focus on Proposify and sell off the agency that was kind of holding us back. So 2014, that's when that happened. We raised the seed round, and then 2 years later, we hit our first $1 million in ARR, and now we're at $2 million, and it's growing nicely. So, whenever you think about, I guess you guys don't really use the term hockey stick growth as much because you're not as much of a hockey crew, but you guys have heard of the hockey stick, right? Okay. Somebody said stick handling and it confused Chris, so I wasn't sure. I don't want to make... Lacrosse. Yes. Oh, lacrosse too. But when they talk about hockey stick growth, they're like, wow, you hit it and you're growing. A lot of people don't look at the flat part, which you kind of need the flat part to have the hockey stick, right? And that flat part, as you can see, was over a year. It was actually about 18 months from when we launched the beta to when we actually started getting traction and getting real customers. And it was that's the hardest period. It was the period of why isn't this working? People don't like the product, or we can't find the right market for it, and just constantly iterating and trying to keep enough cash to survive. And that was the real struggle. I want to shift gears a little bit and just talk about sales and proposals, because this was sort of my why of why did we create this product. I'm sure this isn't you guys. Like, nobody ever feels this way about a proposal, right? It sucks. It's time-consuming. It's boring. It doesn't even feel like it's your actual work. That's why everybody does it in the evening or on the weekends, because it's like the shit that you fit around your real job is writing a business proposal, but you need it, right? And so how do we make that process easier or better? The other thing that I always ran into was just the, like we talked about before, the rejection of sending out a business proposal and then having your client after weeks or maybe months respond with, we're not moving ahead, we're going with your competitor, and kind of dealing with the sting of rejection. And then how many people have proposals just sitting in their pipeline for 30, 60, 90 days or longer and going, where's this at? Like, is the client gonna say yes? Should I follow up? Is this dead in the water? Like, I call it the lagoon of lost proposals. It's just all those proposals that you sent 6 months ago and you don't know where they're at. I think that the most important thing, if you want to talk about closing more deals and having a better close rate when it comes to your proposals, you have to start at where the lead's coming from and how are you validating them. Because I think too many people, and I've made this mistake before, is you take on anybody that comes your way. So somebody calls up your agency. How many people are in agencies or running agencies here? A few, maybe a quarter. And everybody else, so you're running some other type of business, I assume, or sales in a business? Okay. I mean, it doesn't work the same for every business, but in agencies especially, you need to be really selective, right? You can't take on every client that comes your way, and too many people will, like I did this before, it's like if somebody wanted a website for my web design agency, do they have the budget and when do they want to start? Like, that's all I care about. And I realized over time that being selective is a really good thing and having some kind of a qualification process. Does everybody here have your criteria for sales qualified lead, marketing qualified leads? Is everybody doing that? Not everyone, okay. So I want to ask what your qualification process is like, because it's very scary to think about specializing and turning away work, but it's actually the quickest way to get a sustainable business. This was something where I made the mistake at Headspace, my old agency, of being too general. We just did websites for anybody who needed websites and could pay for them. The thought of specializing in a niche or doubling down on kind of a horizontal it seemed counterintuitive, right? Why turn away work when you need work? When we started Proposify, we said we're going in on marketing agencies and digital agencies because that's the customer we know. And we actually had advisors who told us, well, Proposify could be used for any industry. You should target them all. You're limiting yourself. And we kind of said, no, we're not listening to you. We're going to focus on what we know well. And it's worked out really well. 80, 90% of our customer base is digital agencies, marketing agencies, web design, app, that kind of thing. Some of the outliers are like lawn care and pool and spa installation, but most of them kind of fit into that wheelhouse. So do you guys ask yourself if a lead comes to your door and says, I want to do a project or I want a retainer, is this my perfect client? Who here knows who their perfect client is from an avatar, persona basis? Do you have your personas written down? No. Okay, one. Couple. All right. So I would encourage you to kind of take a step back and afterwards write down who is your perfect client? What industry do you serve the best? Who can you just destroy their problem? If they've got this problem, I can just crush it for them. And once you kind of know that, then when a lead comes to you and says, I want to work with you, you can say, are you in this industry? Is this the problem you have? Do you have a timeline, or is there any external factor that's pushing you to make a decision? Obviously, budget. Those are questions you ask yourself. And then if you send less proposals but they're more targeted, you'll have a much higher success rate. So that's where I would start. This is like basic, right? Are you listening to your client? Of course, right? But then so many times I've seen proposals, I've probably written some where I talk about myself. Our agency does this, this, and this. We've won these awards. We have these case studies. We put that into our proposal, and the client's just like, I don't care. I care about me. I don't care about you. So there's a takeaway that you can try to put, whether it's a proposal, whether it's some kind of other marketing collateral, is, you know, absorbing what the client's problem is and just nailing that pain constantly in your, you know, in your emails, in your executive summaries, whatever it is. You know, speak to the client's pain. And I like to treat like an executive summary almost like a case study written from the future, right? You know, case study is like, here is the problem, here is the solution, here's the results. Do that in your executive summary as if you've already done it, right? So we understand your problem intimately, here's how we're gonna approach solving it, here's the results we're gonna get you, and that works really well. Another obvious thing that should be obvious is get rid of jargon. I mean, if we are a marketer, if you're an inbound marketer, are you putting like CTA and conversion optimization and retargeting language in your proposal? Because your client probably doesn't know what the fuck that is, right? So I've been guilty of it. You know, I've put in proposals like, you know, back when responsive design was a brand new thing, it's like, oh, we're gonna use HTML5 and CSS3. Clients don't give a shit, right? So look at this. This is jargon 101, you know, prime example, powering the conversation economy, how the enterprise manages the social experience across internal silos. What does that mean? People are putting this stuff in their marketing materials, in their proposals. If using plain language, so this resource that I linked to, it's basically, if something's difficult to pronounce, then it just says risk to clients. Talk like, you know, teach it to them like they're 5. I want to talk about anchor pricing a little bit because pricing always comes up in a proposal or in any kind of, once you need to tell the client how much something costs, that's kind of the scariest part. It's where clients go first when they look at your proposal. They don't read all that shit earlier, they just go right to the price. So how do you position your pricing? Who here knows what anchor pricing is? So you've probably seen like ShamWow, you've probably seen all these like infomercials where they say, this product, would you pay $200 for it, $300? Well, you're gonna have it for $29.95 or 3 payments or whatever. It's schlocky, it's goofy, but it actually does work. And there's a way to do it so that it's not goofy. People, and this is the source linked here, people base everything on the first piece of information they're giving, right? So like if you're talking to your client, they say, how much is this gonna cost? And you say, okay, it's gonna be $10K a month for your retainer. That's the number they have in their head. They either can afford it or they can't. But then if you come in on your proposal and go, you know, $9,500 a month or $9,000, it's like an old school sales technique that actually works because they were expecting this price and you came in under. That's the power of anchor pricing. And if, I kind of prepared this talk thinking most people were going to be inbound agencies, but that was a wrong assumption. Agencies are kind of notorious as our freelancers for putting in hourly pricing, like as if they're a lawyer. This is our day rate, this is our week rate. And clients don't care about that. They just think that you're going to try to milk them for hours. So HubSpot, I know, has a lot of really good materials on value-based pricing and how you can price your services in almost like a product kind of way. Like show the value you're going to bring to the client and you're only charging a fraction of that versus this is what our hourly rate is. This is my favorite thing to talk about, and it's the last little bit about, you know, proposals before I'll give you a quick overview of the product and then go to Q&A and do whatever. Well, this is one of my favorite books. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And he was a guy who, a lot of it is around like pitching investors and really big deals, but all of it applies to pitching clients. It's really good information. I'm going to kind of paraphrase some of it here. So before I even get into that, if you're sending a proposal, how many people just email their client a proposal and then posse out and like check back in a week to see if they've read it. Like who books a phone call? Yes, yes. 3 or 4 people. This is one of the most powerful things, and it's such an easy win. It's like people do this all the time. They send a proposal, and then they just hope the client read it, and they'll check back in a week or 2. And if they don't proceed, they don't. Pitching it is the easiest way to close it. I'm not sending you a proposal until you agree to a phone call, and once the client is on the call, you can tell a story around how you're going to solve their problem, past case studies, quell any concerns, any rebuttals that come up. You can kind of do that, right? So I think it's a good practice when you send a proposal, say, get on the phone and I'll send you the proposal on the phone. Now, when it comes to actually pitching, this is what I love about Pitch Anything and how it talks about sort of almost the neuroscience behind pitching. Who likes pitching? We got some salespeople here. Nice. The biggest mistake people make when they're pitching someone is, so when you look at the brain and you look at kind of these 3 pieces, and this is probably like very dumbed down science, but the outer part of it is the neocortex. It's like it's the part that manages all the really complex stuff like logic and language and math, and it takes a lot of energy to use your neocortex. You go into the midbrain, it's like social hierarchy, it processes those things. And then the croc brain is the oldest part of the brain that manages very simple binary on-off kind of emotions. It's basically your gut. You know when you hear something and you go, yeah, that doesn't really sit right with me? That's basically your croc brain. It has no logic behind it. It just has yes or no, am I hungry, can I eat it? Like very simplistic. And so the mistake people make is when they're pitching someone, they are thinking that they're pitching the person's neocortex that's going to absorb all the information they're giving them. And in reality, it's the croc brain they're actually pitching to. So when they're giving all that information to a client and saying, here's what we're going to do for you, the client's croc brain is at work and they don't even know it. So how do you kind of make it acceptable to how do you let the croc brain go, yes, I will listen to this and pass it through to the rest of the brain? So basically the croc brain only cares about 2 things. Is this new or novel? Is this something different, or have I heard it before? Because if not, it just turns off. And the other thing is there fear? The croc brain just deals in fear, like, is this dangerous? So if you can get past those 2 things, the croc brain will then allow it to be sort of processed for logic. And so this is one of the ways to get through to the croc brain is to use what Oren Klaff calls local star power. The example here is if you've ever been to a high-end French restaurant or something like that, and you've got a really good maitre d' who like takes command of the dining experience and tells you what wine pairings you should have, and he or she banters with your guests, and it's just really like awesome. That's like local star power, because in reality that maitre d' probably makes less than you. You're probably more wealthy, more powerful, but in that context, the maitre d' has local star power, right? They're in control. They're taking control of the situation, and that's kind of what you want in a pitch. Is even if your client is really, you're pitching to the CEO types, you're pitching to people with maybe a lot of money or influence, they're kind of thinking like, hey, you need to work to impress me. And so that's a mistake people make when they pitch, is they kind of almost beg for the sale, right? The client has the power and the money and the control, and I'm supplicating them for their money. But if you can flip the script on them and make it so that they're working to impress you, then you have local star power. So that's also called busting their power frame. So when you say things like, you get on the phone and you say, look, I've only got half an hour, and then I've got another meeting, but the client's like, what? Or shouldn't you just be like, have all the time in the world for me? Because I have the money. But if you make it seem like I'm really busy and you're lucky if you get my time, it sounds super arrogant, but it actually works, and the client sort of works to impress you. One of the best closing techniques on, like if you're pitching a proposal, is to enforce a deadline. This is why like proposals go in the lagoon of lost proposals. Is there's no deadline. There's no reason to say yes. So a good tactic on the pitch call is to say, listen, you're going to need some time to think this over. check with some people, but you have until next Friday or whatever the date is, 2 weeks from now. And if I don't hear from you, our production plate's going to be full. I need a decision by then. If I don't hear from you, then I understand we're not moving ahead. It's okay. And just by the fact that you don't really care if you get the deal, it actually makes the client want to give it to you. It's crazy, but it works. Okay, so now I'm going to just jump into Proposify a little bit. And do you mind if I play you a quick video? Is that all right? All right.
This is Carrie. Carrie's working on the weekend. And Carrie's working on the weekend because she needs to get a proposal out to a client. Carrie is wasting her time juggling Word docs, emailing coworkers, searching for content, and fumbling around with InDesign. It doesn't have to be like this. Carrie's very good at her job.
Thanks.
But I'm about to make her better. I'm about to turn Carrie into a closer. Proposify. I'm going to show you how to create brilliant proposals that close more deals faster. To start, let's take a quick boo at the template gallery and choose from one of our professionally written, beautifully designed proposal templates. All of our templates are 100% customizable, so you can tinker around with them and make them fit your business and brand. Excellent choice. Proposify's robust editor puts the power of good design in your hands. With just a few clicks, you can change colors, change fonts, change the layout, but dare I say, change the world. Sorry, too much. The content library lets you save things like sections of old proposals, case studies, fees, bios, images, what have you, all in one central place. So you can take what you need, when you need it, and drop it into your proposal.
I think you just saved my life.
Well, don't know about saving lives, Carrie, but Proposify certainly does save you a lot of time. In Proposify, your client can sign your proposal right in the browser, so you can close the deal painlessly. No more sending large emails that get caught in spam, or printing off gigantic documents and sending via snail mail. I mean, what's next? Buying stamps?
Okay, let the nail biting begin.
Nail biting no more, my friend. Proposify's snapshot shows you when your client opens your proposal, how long they spend looking at it, and we'll tell you the minute they accept. And one more thing, Proposify integrates with all of your favorite business apps, so you can link it up with your CRM, invoicing software, and project management tools. Now go and live your life. I'll take it from here. You're welcome.
I closed the deal.
Here's your coffee, Carrie. You've earned it.
Any Glenn Ross fans here? Yeah, so we kind of play on that a little bit. So that should give you kind of a high-level overview of what it's all about. Proposify helps, stream. You saw the video. One thing that's kind of cool that I know, if you use HubSpot, you'll probably want to take a look at is the integration. So it's cool as you can sync your proposal with your deal in HubSpot. So, if your proposal gets sent or viewed, it can move along the stages of the deal in HubSpot. You can import your contacts. And when things happen in Proposify, they get put in as notes in HubSpot. So that's kind of cool. You can also download the PDF of your proposal in HubSpot. So if you have any questions about that afterwards, let me know. I'd love to go to a Q&A. If you guys have any questions just about how I started the company or kind of the journey to get here or anything just specific about sales or proposals, I'd love, and actually if we have anybody who asks questions gets some swag. I think we're gonna have a little contest or something, right? Who wants free shirts and hats? Apparently no one. Hey. Oh, all right.
Hi. Is there a traditional size for agencies where it's like a smaller or a larger scale that you see more success rate or more people adopting it, I guess I would say?
With Proposify? Yes and no. I mean, we tend to, when we started, we kind of went after the freelancer market, and then we quickly realized that's a terrible market to go after. freelancers are very finicky and switch tools and don't don't have budgets and stuff. But we found the small to mid-size agency, like basically Groove size, maybe a little smaller or a little bigger, it's kind of the sweet spot. What we hear a lot of is people saying like, oh, it took us, it used to take 2 hours to do a proposal, now it's like 20 minutes because everything's just like streamlined.
So in the business that we're in, we do A/B testing. In your templates, have you found one that's actually more effective than another?
Good question. In terms of the templates, I mean, people usually start with a template and then change it, so it's a little difficult to say. We've run stats on the proposals put out as sort of like aggregate data. And we found certain correlations, like proposals sent within 4 days are like 11% more likely to close, so we did find some stats. In terms of an actual template, a lot of it just, there's so many factors, so it's hard to tell. And usually with a proposal too, it's not like a website where you get like 1,000 people viewing it and you can split test. It's like 1 or 2 people viewing it. So I don't know how to crack that, but maybe you can help.
Hi, can you talk a little bit more about specifically what you're tracking and the analytics you're doing after the proposal has been sent?
In terms of like in the product, what
Being able to see how the client has interacted with the proposal.
Yeah, so you can see a breakdown of how long it took them to view it initially, how long overall they viewed it, and then a breakdown by section. So you can see they viewed the pricing section, 10 times for a total of X number of minutes. And so actually one thing that we've had, I've had a customer tell me is, this is a really sneaky little tactic, is if a proposal's been out for a couple of weeks or a month and the client hasn't viewed it, but then he gets a notification that the client views it, he'll call them up and say, hey, I just wanted to follow up on the proposal because it's top of mind. And he won't tell them that he saw it in like Proposify. The client will just be like, hey, I just happened to be looking at the proposal, what a coincidence. And he'll say, well, clearly it was meant to be. And he closes that way.
One more question. Aside from the HubSpot integration, what do you feel Proposify's biggest advantages over like a Google Docs?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing with Google Docs is great for all kinds of document management, but when you get like a sales team and people are copying and pasting from multiple documents and multiple accounts and sharing them and then generating PDFs and emailing clients, like that's where the process gets really clunky. So, Proposify basically puts it all into like a sales pipeline. People can collaborate, they can assign proposals to people, so it just kind of makes that process a lot easier. You can use Google Docs for a proposal, but it's sort of like everything around the proposal that then gets clunky and hard to collaborate on. Yeah.
Kyle, what features or benefits of Proposify were you surprised that were most popular amongst your clients once you launched the product versus when you were building it?
Yeah. Initially, the idea was always about saving time, and that was sort of the value proposition. It was like, we'll save time on proposals. And then as we were like struggling with getting traction and we'd put out new versions and we'd have some people sign up but not convert, or they would leave after a month, it was like really just struggling to figure out how do we create something like sticky. And there were features that people had asked for that I never had envisioned, like having pre-made templates, having signatures, and having like view metrics to see where they looked. I never thought at the beginning that was something that people would want, but through enough conversations with customers, this is why like customer development is so important when you're building a product. It's like then you find what people really want, and that's how you get a product that gets traction. Yeah.
Do you have a dynamic mix where you can play video, you can create a proposal without sending them to another page to view it?
Yeah, there is actually, it's a tool right within, is you can like drag a rectangle or whatever and like move it wherever you want, and you just embed a Wistia or YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. So actually we have one client in, I think Nashville, who has an inbound agency, and the owner, Bill, does a video for every proposal that goes out. He does a quick like, hey, I'm Bill, I can't meet you in person, but I want to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And he does a custom video for every proposal, and he says like, just destroys like the close rate. And you can embed that in the proposal without having to link out to like YouTube or Vimeo or Wistia or whatever. Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So the proposal software that we use is more of a quote system. It's connected to the accounting program. And nothing nice looking about it at all. Does yours coordinate at all, the accounting, part of it, or is it purely HubSpot?
Yeah, so we have kind of different classes of integration. So we integrate with a number of CRMs, like HubSpot, a few others. Invoicing is kind of, we play in that wheelhouse a little bit. So we integrate with FreshBooks, QuickBooks, and drawing a blank. What's the other one? Xero. So basically, when your client wins, when your client accepts your proposal, we look at your pricing table and then create an invoice in your accounting software based off of that. And you can say, oh, I only want to invoice 50% up front. So you put that in, and then we generate automatically the invoice in like QuickBooks or FreshBooks.
Do you guys do anything like presentations where you're using other document formats like PDFs or PowerPoints or anything like that, where you can actually the tracking and the time and where they spend looking at? That's really interesting. Do you guys have anything with other types of documents?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're definitely thinking about, because we're finding people are going, I can use this for contracts and presentations and other. Some people use do client reports and like branding guidelines and stuff using the software, which is funny. I never thought they would use it that way. So we're actually kind of thinking about a way to do that in a flexible way. I mean, it's always hard. You don't want to, as soon as we're a general document management software, then we might as well be Google Docs, right? It's always hard to kind of know how specific and niche do you go and how broad in general, but it's a good question. I didn't answer your question at all. Hey, Bill.
My question's a little more philosophical
Whoa.
than the nuts and bolts. So we sell products and we sell them nationally, and competition-wise, the product that we might sell in New York, we're under market, but if we go and sell it in Nashville, we're very expensive. So we need to have some flexibility to negotiate. Generally, we've tended to just propose our list price. How do you do that and at the same time infer flexibility? Because we get a pretty premium price in our stuff, but we're also very willing for the right situation to be very competitive. Have you run into that sort of?
Do you list your prices publicly on your website?
Not yet.
Okay, then that basically would, I think, limit you from being able to kind of maneuver and tweak pricing as you go. Because that's the classic agency model, is you'd never list your prices publicly, because if you're pitching Nike or Coke for work, you're not going to charge them the same amount that you charge the florist down the street. You have to be able to charge bigger companies more money. So as long as you haven't listed your prices and it's like everything is very bespoke and custom, then I think you have maneuver. But if you start listing them publicly, I would think that would sort of kind of destroy your leverage.
Well, it's sort of the opposite, is that we're going to start high, but if the volume's there, we're willing to compromise to win the volume of business.
Right.
But we tend not to want to tip our. So have you run into good language that says, this is the price, but tell us what you need? It doesn't just invite folks to say, well, we need less.
So you're willing to offer volume, like more or less volume discounts at economy scale. I mean, just say that. Like, here's our standard pricing, but if we deal in high quantity, contact us for a custom quote. So I would do something like that.
Hey Kyle, if I could just maybe interject on that. One of the things I love about Proposify is the ability to put in options where the client can actually, in the proposal, check, okay, there's a 6-month option. If you're a services company, there's a 6-month option, there's a 12-month option. You can incorporate a discount, if they're gonna go with the higher 12-month options, or say if there are different tiers of pricing based on whether it's frequency or the size of the order. I mean, traditionally, that are things where you had to create new proposals when the client came back to ask for either more or less. Built into Proposify is the option to hit a drop-down box or hit a radio button to check an option. So for me, as someone who's been using it for 3 or 4 months, that's been really huge in being able to provide those options. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that exactly answers Bill's question, but it is, that dynamic ability to have an interactive proposal versus a static proposal is what I've seen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like in Bill's case, I think you're talking about if the quantity's there, meaning probably you're pitching a bigger company, they want a better deal on, the widgets or the deliverables. I mean, that's just classic enterprise sales, I think, You'll it's a bigger deal, but you'll pay less per unit if the quantity's there. I don't know if that helps. Cool, if there's no other questions, feel free to come up and chat after, and I appreciate you guys coming out to hear me. Thank you.